Hello, my name's Daniel. I'm an alcoholic and a drug addict. It's an open meeting. I'll use the word loaded a lot. Thank you, Anthony. I hope I explain what this thing's all about. I appreciate you saying that because I showed up today a few different times, not sober, and I just didn't know what this thing was about. Like, I did not know why people were here. I didn't believe people getting chips. Like, I was just telling Anthony when the girl got the 5 months, I was like, God, dude, 5 months was so long. It was so long when, like, all I am consumed with is thinking about getting loaded. Like, every fiber of my being is thinking about getting loaded all day. 5 months is a hard task. It's something hard to comprehend. And I would say I take that for granted today. My sobriety date is June 27th, 2012. So I have not put something in my body in a long time. Not because of me. I'm definitely not perfect at this deal. I want to reflect 14 years ago. I was in a treatment center coming off Suboxone because I was hooked on heroin and snorting phenobarbital because I didn't want to be sober, but they were giving me that for detox. And this thing worked in spite of me. So I think it's. By the way, before I get into it, so anything that's not in the big book, do not listen to. I have a lot of opinions, and they're all hogwash because the only reason I'm standing up here today is because of the 12 steps, someone taking me through the 12 steps, and that is the most important thing about this deal is going through the 12 steps. One of the reasons I did not like going to meetings is because I did not trust people. If you want to get into that, the reason I didn't trust people is because I was not trustworthy. It's not that complicated. So I saw y'all like happy, and I'm like, this ain't real. Like this is some cult stuff. But like the truth is once I went through the 12 steps, honestly, with someone like armed with the facts about themselves, like something dramatic happened in my life that I want to chalk up to something divine, because the guy that took me through the steps was the age I was. I want to say he was 23 years old. I think he had maybe like a year more sober than I did at that point. He didn't have anything special going on in his life, but he was armed with the facts about himself, and the circumstances in my life had made me willing to like take a look at something. I did not want to be sober. I just want to reiterate that. Like, I think too often I judge sponsees and people's like attitude about sobriety as if that matters. It doesn't. It does not matter. I'm a testament to that. When they're like, look to your left, look to your right, like, not all y'all are gonna be sober a year from now. Like, I was the guy that's like, yeah, I'm not gonna be sober a year from now. Like, I was not buying in. And I am here with a completely different life than I had before, and I'm extremely grateful for that. I do not deserve that, but I have that, so I'm very grateful for that. I moved out here from Texas 3 years ago, almost 3 years ago, and when I spoke for the first time, I didn't know anybody yet, and the person that introduced me is my kid's stepdad. So I just want that to sit for a second. Like, if y'all want like a real life like example of recovery coming to fruition, like that should be a good one. I don't know anybody, and my kid's stepdad is the one that introduces me at a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous so I can tell my story. Like, that is a real promise coming true. We read the promises, and they sound great, but when I'm in that spot in my life and I hear that stuff, like, I've heard it a million times. Oh, you got potential, Daniel. Oh, you can do it, Daniel. It's hollow. It does not mean anything when I've just continued to disappoint myself time and time and time again. Continue to disappoint the people I love time and time and time again. Telling someone you have potential is not a compliment. It means they are not living up to their potential. Yeah, so I like to make myself laugh. I do take this very seriously, but I also like, I really have had a psychic change where I realize I may only have one more life. You know what I mean? I may not be reincarnated. I don't know what happens when I die. So I want to make the best of what I know I have, which is right now. And so I really do try to like take this stuff with a grain of salt, and I really do try to have fun with it. And I took everything so seriously, so seriously. I don't know why. I mean, we'll get into it a little bit. I have some theories, but I really have no clue why I was so serious and angry from a young age. Like, no idea. So I grew up with my mom and sister. My mom is a fantastic lady, the demonstration of unconditional love. She was actually here a year ago when I told my story. And it's cool because I've told my story a lot, and my story has changed. Hopefully it's not because I'm lying, but I want to chalk it up to the fact that like I'm changing. So the way I look at my past has also changed. So I remember her listening to my first story ever. I want to say I was a year sober. And I described some situations from the way I was raised in a way that was not fair to her. I regret the way I described some of that stuff because she is the epitome of an unconditional love. Straight up. So I did not go without love. I can tell you that much. In the late 90s, this is not true today. I mean, I just kind of described how like I have a true modern family going on in my life right now. Like I'm not even going to get into it, but it's a true modern family. And but in the late 90s, if you had a divorced family, you went to counseling in elementary school. So they would walk into the classroom and they would pull all the kids that had divorced parents. Keep in mind there weren't that many. So like we'd all be asked to stand up and go to this, like, I don't know, go to reward time or get candy or something. I don't know. And I remember refusing. I was like, I'm not going. I'm not going. And like they were offering a positive thing, like a positive effect produced. Here's some candy. Let's go play in the playground. And I was like, nope, I don't want to be different than anybody. I don't want to be different. And so early on, I remember just really wanting to go with the crowd of things. I really didn't want to be special. I didn't want to stand out. I was always taller than everyone. I didn't like that. Now as an adult, of course, I like it because I'm like, oh, I'm better than you. I'm just kidding. But no, like as an adult, I appreciate it. But as a kid, I remember just being insecure. And I made friends really easily, though. I did not have an issue making friends. I would say school and that kind of stuff was easy for me. And I also didn't have no like crazy trauma. I mean, I would say that I would tell you I had some stuff, like AKA I didn't grow up with a dad. But upon doing a 4-step when I got sober, I realized that it was not his fault. And that was a tough pill to swallow because I was able to use it as a weapon for a long time. Anybody come to try to step at me, it's like I got angry really quick. And I was not nice when I was angry. And this is from a young age. So I would think about that in treatment because I would think about like they'd always talk about like your secrets kill you and like your past is. I was always trying to figure out, why am I an alcoholic? Like, why do I drink differently than the people I grew up with? And there's a line in the book. It's anticlimactic, but I think it is very relevant. It says, because I like the way the effect produced. Period. Men and women drink essentially because they like the effect produced. Like, is it possible that the reason I'm alcoholic is because I like the effect produced? Maybe it's not some crazy, complicated system of events that led to this, that, and the other, and I'm trying to cast blame and trying to dissect and trying to figure out, like, but when I was in treatment, I started getting scared. I'm like, fuck, man, I don't have a, I was like, I don't have a reason. I don't have a good reason. Like, the people around me have good reasons. So I was like, maybe I'm gay, maybe I got molested and I like hid it really deep inside, and maybe it was my mom actually did this. Like, you know what I mean? I was creating stories that weren't real. Because I really was worried about, like, why do I drink? And the big book makes it crystal clear. It's like, because I like the effect produced. It's almost too simple for me to you know what I mean? I'm special. I want a real good reason on why I get loaded. Why I treat people like trash. I want a good reason for that. And maybe it's not. Maybe it's because I'm selfish and self-centered. Maybe it's because my selfishness and self-centered helps keep my alcoholism protected. Maybe there's nothing really complicated about it. And maybe I just need to own that and be able to take responsibility and move forward with that instead of like always using some crazy stories and stuff. So I started drinking like, I would say, end of middle school, going into high school. You know, my first time drinking was my mom she would host parties all the time. She is not an alcoholic. So we had a fridge in the garage, and it always had wine. We had tons of liquor, tons of beer. It was stocked all the time. And so I would just go in there and grab like 2 Heinekens. And the problem with Heinekens are you can't twist off the top. And so as like a 13-year-old kid that doesn't know how to use a bottle opener, I'm like in the bathroom, like trying to break it on the edge. And it's like shards of glass. And I remember the first time I drank was by myself in the bathroom, in the shower, naked, with shards of, like, trying to like avoid the shards of glass, like getting in my throat. Like, I don't know. Seems like I could have had a cooler story about my first time I drank, but that's what I would do, is I would just take a little bit from that fridge, and it was easy. No one would ever know. No one would know. And then we had some older friends that would, actually, before I get into that, so I kind of touched on with my dad. So he was a New Jersey, very stoic, didn't show emotion kind of guy. And so that upset me a lot growing up because I was very emotional. I was very angry. And when I would see someone be so detached and stoic, like, it would just make me want to like attack. So him and I did not have any sort of relationship, but I remember kind of like feeling a level of disappointment from him about why I could never kind of meet the expectations. And so I remember like going through high school, starting to use our friends' older brothers, and they would get us alcohol. We'd, hey, mister people. We'd get fake IDs. And that kind of progressed. I mean, I got arrested at the end of high school. So like my door's been kicked in. I've been on probation. I've been arrested. I've been resuscitated. I've had a lot of things kind of come up in the process. But I would say that ultimately the craziest part about it all was I always could see what was happening, and I could never change my mind on not doing it again, is how it felt. I would see my friends that I was drinking with and getting loaded with, I would see them the next morning kind of recuperate and kind of get back to their feet and go to work or go to school. And I remember thinking, like, that is, like, how are you doing? Like, we need to find that dude again. Like, what are you talking about going to work? Like, we got to find that guy. And the whole time I thought that I was changing my mind, that like that morning that I was like, oh no, I just want to go back to that again. I want to go back to that again. And so if I really at a young age, I would say probably about 17 is when I became physically dependent. I don't know if I was fully like in the throes of alcoholism, but I definitely had withdrawals. So I became physically dependent. And at that point, I started really like choosing not to get loaded anymore. I'm not going to do it. And fast forward a couple hours and I'd be doing it. And it was a choice I made. I'm going to choose to do this. So when I got presented with the book of that I've lost the power to choose, that was a challenging proposition to kind of consider. No, I chose that. And someone articulated in a way that made a lot of sense to me. They said, if someone is drowning, how do they end up passing away? The answer is they end up inhaling water and flooding their lungs. So the question is, does that person choose to breathe underwater, therefore killing themselves? Or is that choice made for them by some part of their brain that is a survival mechanism that when they are lack of oxygen, they have to breathe. And you run that parallel with my experience, and when he told me that to me, like, it literally just made me, I was like, that's the best thing I've ever heard. Because that's what describes me, is it felt like that Jack in the Box kind of ratcheting up every moment that I was not putting something in my body. And I did not know why. Because like I said, I didn't have a good reason on why I should be relying on this. I would argue that for most of my life, I was not maladjusted to life. Like, I am the true sense of a real alcoholic because there's no good reason for me to be one. There really isn't. But I cannot stop when I start. I would drive across town. I would go pick up, drive across town, try to get back to work without them knowing that I was gone. And then guess what would happen by the end of the day? You run out. So then I have to drive back across town to go get more. Why would I not just pick it up the first time I was there? Because in my head, I was like, no, this is what I need. This is all I need. And that would happen every day. When I was thinking about kind of 3 years ago, for some reason, I thought I moved here in 2024. For the record, that's 2 years ago. And then I realized, I was like, oh, wait, it was 2023. And so I was like, man, I lose track of time so easily. And it's funny because I used to lose track of time very easily because every day was the same day. Every day was Groundhog Day. It was like, I come to, because I didn't actually fall asleep. So I come to, I'm already sick. I don't have anything in the room. And I'm trying to figure out how to scrounge enough money or call the right person or figure out the next way to get what I need to get so I can either get to work or go impress this person or whatever the case is. But every day was the same day. Every day. It did not matter who was in my life. Every day was the same day. And so I lost track of all that time. I don't know what happened for a few years there. I mean, like I said, there's some significant events that happened that I definitely remember. But from the day on day out stuff, it was survival of how do I continue to keep this protected without losing it. I also remember being kind of held accountable for war storing too much. I don't know if y'all are familiar with the phrase war story. Because people in Parkrest don't do that. No, I'm just kidding. But I was held accountable for war storing. And I remember thinking, what am I supposed to talk about? That's all I have. My identity is wrapped up into being this person. I had resigned myself to this is who I am. Throw out all the stuff from the years past. It's this is who I am. This is what helps me function. This is what makes me effective as I'm unemployed, no money, no car. You know what I mean? I'm really effective, but yeah, that's the power of the delusion with it. So I ended up getting a girlfriend through this process, and she was, I guess, addicted to something at some point. And so she used to always tell me, oh, I was able to get off of it. You'll get off of it. And I remember being you're right. Tomorrow. And so she stayed with me for a while, a year. That was a long time back then. So I was with her for a year. Side note about that. So I've never been able to make direct amends to that person. I reached out to them when I was probably 6 months sober. I had bad motives reaching out to them. I definitely wanted to show her, hey, this is the guy that you knew I could be. And she said something along the lines of if you want to apologize, I accept your apology, but I want nothing to do with you. Do not contact me ever again, kind of thing. And so that stung because I had made some amends at that point, and I really wanted to make that amends. I wanted to show her how changed I was. But cool story. So 2 years ago, she hit me up and she said, hey, her and I had a mutual friend from, I don't know, 16 years ago or whatever. Hey, this mutual friend of ours is struggling. Can you help them? And so I was able to coordinate helping this person out and whatnot. But I thought about that after the fact, and I was like, maybe that's a part of like my amends to her, is that she knew that I had changed to the extent that 12 years later, she's hitting me up out of the blue, being like, can you help my friend? So obviously some element of me changing did get to her, and that she got to maybe recognize that like what she did for me actually made a difference, because I would argue that she saved my life. I did not interpret it at the time that way, but like I said, my story changes depending on the year you ask me to share it. So she ended up kind of, because I was having seizures and I was completely, like I'd be having the cold sweats, I'd be going through all the withdrawal stuff in the bed would be soaking, I'd be throwing up, I'd be having diarrhea, all the different stuff. Doing this for a few days, getting on to the tail end of kind of getting back to some level of function. And then and she'd be sleeping on the couch during all this, she can't sleep in the bed. It's disgusting. And I'll never forget, like I would come out of the bedroom and it'd be like 10:15 at night, and I'd have my keys with me, and she'd say, "Where are you going?" And I would look at her and be like, "I'll be back." And like, that's like gut wrenching, because I really did like love this girl. I really did care about this person. But like when it comes to breathing, it's not optional. Like I'm going to breathe. And I'm either going to breathe by getting loaded, or I'm going to breathe by getting power through this process called the 12 steps, however hokey and cheesy it is. Like I'm going to find power, period. The question is, what kind of power am I going to find? It's not a choice in whether you seek out power. What kind of power you seek out is your choice. And so I would leave, and I'd come back, and of course she'd be gone. And but she saw me just physically fall apart. Like I'm about 6'2". I weighed about a little over 120 pounds when I got intervened on. I'm about 190 muscles right now. So yeah, I was about like 70 pounds less than I am now. Like I was eating like a bag of rice just so I wouldn't be like throwing up. Essentially, I'd eat like a bag of rice. I put cheese on it, of course. Gotta have flavor. You can't just be eating rice. That's disgusting. But yeah. So like that was like what I would do in the morning. I'd eat a bag of rice. I would throw up everywhere every morning. And then I would try to function. I had a job at my mom's boyfriend's HVAC company. The only reason I had a job is because it was my mom's boyfriend. So he wanted to like really make a good mark with her. And so he hired me, and he would try to train me up and like build me into the man that I could become. And I was an awful employee to him, an awful employee. I feel bad for like, I'm just like, what the heck? What was he thinking about the whole time? He's like, God, dude, this guy is so like, this girl better be worth it. Like, so yeah, I was falling apart. I was having seizure. I would wake up, there would be blood on the pillow. My tongue would be swollen. It would be like a day later. Like it was getting out of control from a physical standpoint. It had already been out of control with like a familial, like the doors were changed at my dad's house. Like, people weren't inviting me to like, parties and events, because they're like, one, he's not going to show. If he shows, he's going to be loaded, or two, he's going to come for like a second, and then something's going to go missing potentially, and then he's going to leave. So everything was falling apart. And so basically she intervened. I ended up getting an intervention. And so I got put into a program I did not do well in, because I did not think alcohol was my problem. And to be fair, alcohol's not my problem. I was talking to someone earlier today. Breathing is my problem. Survival is my problem. Being awake is my problem. Because doing this without the liquid courage that goes down my throat after cracking that open, like, it's hard. It is hard. And when I was describing that breathing part, it's like, I can only do it so long before it feels like I'm literally about to suffocate. Like, I can pull it off for a day or two, maybe. I honestly don't know if I've ever really had any element of real sobriety time. That's one question that's always come up for me in the years I've been sober, is like, I've always tried to stop, but I've never had any real sobriety time before I actually got sober. I always had some element of a medication or like weed or there was always something involved in my sobriety beforehand. So I don't know if I've ever relapsed. Um, I would say since I've worked the 12 steps, I have not relapsed. So I don't know if that makes a difference, but I did pick up a 30-day chip at a very big AA meeting one time. I was very proud of myself. It was like 100 people, and I go up there with get my 30-day chip, and I'm like, yeah. And I was not sober. Like I honestly was proud of myself though, because like I had been off like some stuff. Like, you know what I mean? Like it was real dicey about the way I viewed the world and myself. So I'm glad that when the circumstances made me willing, someone properly armed with the facts about themselves came into my life. They gave me a sufficient substitute to what I was dealing with, because if someone had come to me and not been clear on what's in the book, I don't know if it would have stuck. I really don't. I had started going to meetings. Like I said, I was not sober, and I see this kid I went to high school with. So I, of course, go over to him and like, hey, what are you doing here? What are you doing? Oh, yeah, blah, blah, yeah, we still get loaded when we go to A meetings. That's really cool. Like, so like, I was like, what's this thing they always ask about sponsor? Like, I always hear people talking about get a sponsor sponsor that's like, it was like, what's a sponsor? And he's like, do you want one? I was like, I don't know what it is. He's like, well, let me introduce you to this guy. So he grabs this young kid, and this kid's from the other side of town, the rich side of town. And so I'm like, screw this guy, like, whatever. And so he comes up to me, he introduces himself, and he says, hey, man, like, I heard you might want to be a sponsor, or might need a sponsor. I said, yeah, I don't really know what it is. He's like, cool, man, let's meet at Starbucks tomorrow, and I'll explain to what, kind of what it is. I was like, cool, I don't have a car. And he's like, oh, how'd you get here? And I was like, well, my aunt drove me. So like at this time I didn't have a car. So like my mom would take me, my aunt would drive, you know what I mean? People would drive me to meetings. They'd give me $1. They'd be like, have fun. And then they'd pick me up after the meeting. Some of y'all know what I'm talking about. And, so my aunt was out in the parking lot just waiting for me to be done. And so he said, introduce me to her. And so I said, okay. So like we walk out to the car, and I'm like, hey, this is gonna be my sponsor. And he's like, hey, I'm Scott. Can you take Daniel over to Starbucks tomorrow at 10 a.m. or whatever time? And she's like, oh, yes, well, yes, for sure. Like, we can do that. But I think about that a lot today. I think about that a lot. Do I do that for like the people I'm sponsoring? The answer is no. You know what I mean? Like, I'm a convenient sponsor. I'm like selfish and self-centered with how I carry the message. That dude was willing to be like, oh, you don't have a car? Let's go talk to your ride and schedule this thing. We're not going to rely on you texting me. We're not going to rely on like us touching base in a week from now. Like, you're dying. Like, let's go get this thing set up. And like, I really like owe that dude everything. I owe that dude everything. He helped create some dominoes that I didn't stay sober during that portion, but I got to a spot that I eventually did. And I am forever grateful for that guy. I still stay in touch with him. When I get my sobriety, when I have my sobriety birthday every year, I always text him, and I just say like, I'm so grateful that I met you. And that's the cool thing about this is you never know who that's going to be. Like, this guy was unassuming. He was not the senior most member of the meeting. He didn't share the loudest. He didn't have the best. He didn't have the most sponsees. Like, he didn't have a cool car. Like, he was unassuming, but he was armed with the facts about himself, and he had a psychic change as a result of the steps. And the one thing that I can say is like, I have had a psychic change as a result of the steps. 100%. When people ask me if I believe in God, I kind of struggle with that question, because ultimately, do I know if there's a God or not? No. But since I've been open-minded to the idea of God, has my life changed 100%? Yes, without a doubt. So like, I am not worried about whether there's a God or not, to be honest. I pray to a God. I am open to God. I hear God through y'all. But like, me figuring out, I don't care. I really don't. That is what is a part of my psychic change. Because like I said, I had a brain that just analyzed every bit of everything. I had to figure out it all. I had to be very serious. Sometimes I see like younger people. I call my friends kids that are like grown men with like families, and I call them kids. But sometimes I'll legit see kids like taking themselves really seriously, and I feel bad because I'm like, God, dude, I did that for so many years. I robbed myself. Like I would never dance at a school dance, never. Now when I go to a meeting, guess what I do? Or not a meeting, not a meeting, not a meeting. When I go to a wedding, guess what I do? I dance. Even though I look like an idiot and even though I feel dumb, I dance because that's like an amends to like I missed out on so many times to be silly and have fun. And I tried to do that stuff today. I really don't want to be on my deathbed being like, why did you? I don't want to have regrets. I really don't. And I feel like recovery has given me a very clear path of that. One of the things it has taught me is to take responsibility. I think that is a huge part of why I don't have regrets anymore. Are there things I mess up on? Of course. Are there things I wish went differently? Yes. But I own it. And so I don't have regrets about those relationships and the way they ended up. I own it. And I think that's something that I wish I would have learned early on. It's something that I try to teach my 7-year-old son, is owning it. He's not there yet. Got a lot of work to do. And another cool part about that is, so his mom and I met in recovery. And so she has, I want to say she has 12 years. And so he's grown up with 2 members of AA helping raise him. And I would argue that he is so resilient and he knows he's loved because of that. Like because of that psychic change, because I'm able to be emotionally available for someone today. Beforehand, it was like, it was either anger or like, I'm better than you. There wasn't a whole lot of like connection going on. It was either like push him away or like, I'm already away because I'm better than you. So I really feel very blessed to have teach me those kind of things so I can pass it to the next generation of my son and the people that I come in contact with. It's funny telling my story kind of after 2012 because most of you, well, all of y'all know me as like a responsible person. Hopefully I've been somewhat responsible for the last 3 years, but like all of y'all know me as a pretty decent person. Like if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. Like that was not the case for a long time. That was not the case for a long time. Most people, if I said I was going to do something, there was a strong possibility I was not going to do it. There's a funny saying that's like, they weren't unreliable. You could rely on them to disappoint you. Like that's kind of in a little bit of the breadth of where I was at. Like you could, if he says he's going to show up at 5 o'clock, you can bet your bottom dollar I ain't showing up at 5 o'clock. I might show up that night, but I'm definitely not showing up at 5 o'clock. So today it's like, I would say that most of y'all, if y'all are like, hey, are you going to be the secretary? Are you going to do whatever position? Can you help set up? Like they can rely on that. And that's pretty cool. I really appreciated the way I was taken through the steps. And it's not any different than the way Anthony did. I'll give you all a secret. We read the book. So it was not special. We literally read a book that was written back in the 30s. And we asked each other questions. He would ask me questions and I would say, I don't agree. And we'd talk about it and then we'd move on to the next thing. And we talk about it and we move on to the next thing. And we read the book. And the whole time we're reading the book, I just remember thinking like, I got a real problem like on my hands and you're telling me this is going to solve it? Like a real problem, a life-threatening problem. I will say this, I feel bad for today's day and age because this is an opinion, so take it for what it's worth. But like, I really think a part of learning and developing and growing up is like experimenting with stuff. Nowadays, I feel bad for kids because if you experiment the wrong thing, you're dead. Like I feel bad. Like I had the luxury of like, that was not the case in the 2000s. Like if you were buying something, you were buying that. Like you didn't have to worry about being pressed or whatever. So I do feel really bad for people nowadays in that sense. So I want to end with this. So I had me and my dad's relationship. I got sober. I made amends to him. It went well. I I owed an amends to his mom. I also owed an amends to his side of the family, essentially, my aunt, his mom, my granny. And so I asked him one day, I said, and I was probably about, I don't know, maybe 13 months sober, so like a little over a year. I said, hey, can we take a trip to Houston? I want to do an amends trip to Houston. My grandma was dead at this point, so I was going to be doing a graveside amends to her, and I was going to be doing an amends directly to my aunt. And he said, yeah, that'd be great. Like, I'd love to. So I was talking to my sponsor beforehand, and my sponsor was like, we were going through the amends, what I owed amends to and stuff. By the way, never make amends without running it by your sponsor first. I've had to make amends for amends, so don't do that. That's very embarrassing. It's very embarrassing having to make amends for stuff in sobriety too. I don't even have the excuse of being loaded. So I was going through it with my sponsor, kind of what I was going to be making amends for, and he said at the end of it, and he was not a real like dramatic person, so he said, I really want you to pay attention to this one, Daniel. And I was like, oh snap, like it's graveside amends, I need to pay attention, I need to be woke, like come on, let's do this. So like we're going down there, we like stop at the store, we get some sentimental items, some flowers, some things that remind us of her. And so we go to the gravesite, and both my dad and I walk out there, and we're sitting at the grave, and we're kind of talking about her and stuff. And I have my amends card. I had written a card, and so I have my amends card. And so we put the stuff down in the grave. We're kind of talking about her, and my dad says, "Okay, I'll let you do your amends." So I sit down, I meditate. I'm just asking God to like let me really be able to like own what I did. And so I start reading the card to her, and nothing happens. I get done reading the card. The last question I asked her is, what can I do to make it right? And nothing happens. And I'm like, maybe I need to meditate a little longer. So I go back and meditate, do another prayer. I was probably there for about, 20, 30 minutes. And so I'm like, okay, it feels like the amends is done. Like, it feels like I did what I was supposed to do. So I kind of stand up a little bit disappointed, because I didn't have her talk to me from the grave. I didn't have the experience that I was expecting. So I'm walking back to the car, and in the car, my dad is crying. And I get into the car, and it was the first time I'd ever seen my dad cry. And I realized that I am so selfish that I look at something like an amends for what am I getting out of it. And what I don't realize about that amends with my grandma is that I was making my dad's mom suffer, which as a byproduct of that is making my dad have to suffer. I didn't even think about that in writing my inventory, that the amends was not just to her. It was to him for all those years. And so when I sat down in the car, it hit me like a ton of bricks. I was like, the amends was not for her. Like, she's dead. The amends was for him. And I realized that the world that this AA gives us is so much bigger than I can ever imagine. It is so much more deep than I can ever imagine. The only thing that limits that is my selfishness. And the steps are designed to get me out of selfishness. And so I'm forever grateful to AA. I am forever grateful to the dude that came up to my aunt's car. It's been a fun ride. It really does feel like a couple of years have gone by, and I'm picking up 14 years next week. So it feels like I'm super blessed. So thank y'all for letting me speak.